Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke, and today we are at the 10th of November, 2024, and it was another spectacular sunrise today. I was watching it. Good morning, Alex. Beautiful start to the day. Of course, now it's supposed to rain later, which is actually a good thing because we haven't had any rain in ages. Of course, I haven't finished working on my leaves, so it's going to make it harder to do that with the leaf blower if everything gets wet. But I'm probably not going to get back to that till later in the week anyway. So I hope you've been having a good weekend. Hope everybody's having a good weekend. Yes, good morning. And today is a day, normally, well, this is actually going to be a work morning because I have to edit a podcast that has to go up for Patreon. I was so busy all weekend, and I had another really blitzing headache yesterday while I had a client during the day, and then I had to teach class in the afternoon. And one out of two students, one couldn't make it, so, I was just kind of we were trying to do a lot of exercises and work with the one. And hopefully she enjoyed that. But, I managed to get through the afternoon yesterday, and then in the evening, my friend had his live stream, and, friend, I say online friend, really, had his live stream. And then, after that, I had... I think Jenny had actually messaged me and said, oh, there's going to be a great chance to take photos of the aurora again. Good morning, Joanne. And so, but I went out and, good morning. And I actually was going to go out and take photos of that. I tried to take a couple, but it didn't come out. And she had said, well, it's kind of low. It's like 3.6 or something. She had sent me some that she had gotten that were really kind of violet in color, but I didn't quite get the same thing on mine. So she says, oh, maybe if you go out later. And I'm like, I ain't going out later. I was in bed by like 7:30 last night. I was just wiped. So it's been very, very busy, and I've been getting a lot of impetus to do things. Interesting messages from Azrael this morning. One of them was, how did it go? What was it? Lapte Upa Ras, I think is the way it went. You've been having really intense headaches too. Yeah, it's just, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's stress. I don't know if it's the weather. I don't know what it is, but it definitely, it seems to be a very high headache week. I don't know if it's the astrological stuff going on. It was, what was I saying? I can't remember. So literally what he had said in Enochian was basically, I am your wings east. So to me, I always felt like that was kind of part of, I'm going to show you the way to go east, because I feel like I said, regardless of anything else that's happening in the collective right now in the U.S., I do feel like it's getting to be time for me to move. So I'm looking at that very seriously right now. And Alex, and I hope your headaches get better, Alex, because that's a real, it's a difficult thing to deal with. I am going out, friends coming over, and we're going to actually order lunch in. So, unless we change our mind and decide to go out, but we're going to be, I haven't met up with her in a while, so we're going to do that today. And I did want to mention to everybody, I have, and hello, Sam. Good morning, afternoon really, just afternoon where you are. I was just literally talking about how I got a message from Azrael this morning about, I'm going to be your wings east. So in other words, helping you get east, which is over where you are right now. So that seems to be something, although he did say, morning all, woke up early and started to reorganize my kitchen. Office is next. Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned, actually, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because that's it's kind of a nice segue into what my topic was going to be for today. And the topic today has to do with, and this came into my mind early this morning, was the Four of Cups card. Okay. And because I was thinking about that with respect to kind of Virgo energy and the idea of perfectionism, right? The way in which we have to do things perfectly. And it's funny because you're doing all this reorganization, and that's kind of what's been happening here as well. I'm like, okay, I've got stuff up for sale on eBay again. People who are fans of Edward Gorey and his work, his artwork and his cartoons and stuff. I have a lot of stuff for sale, so that is on eBay. I haven't been, being that this is not really, I'm probably going to post what my eBay ID is, so if people want to go check it out. anybody wants any of it, with the people doing different things for holidays and stuff right now, it might be something that people want right now, but I definitely need to start selling things off, and getting a whole bunch of stuff together for Facebook Marketplace. I have like a bicycle in the basement. I have different things that I'm going to just start trying to get rid of because, and even today, I have to edit my podcast, but I'm going to be cleaning up and cleaning out. But I was going to say is that we have a dream seminar scheduled for November 23rd, and I think I meant to post that the other day, and between the headaches and everything else going on, a lot of days I've just been trying to kind of keep it in balance for the people who I'm either teaching or people I'm working with. And good morning, Suda. So I'm been trying to keep it all together, but we are going to have a dream workshop and I'm going to have it earlier. I'm going to have it like at 11 in the morning because I do have to teach a class in the afternoon from 3 to 5. So I was like, okay, let's do, let me do the class from 11 to 1, and then that way that just gives me enough time. And that way, too, if anybody's in the UK and wants to participate, then it's early enough. It's not going to be 9 o'clock at night or whatever over in the UK. So, So anyway, so that I'm going to post, I should post a promo for that, and I'll post something to stories as well, so that people, if they just want to click on a link from their phone and go right to the registration, then you can do that. So this is, and I know people are asking me, I'm getting a lot of questions about Institute for Study of Feminine Myth for next year, and also about, I've had at least 2 or 3 people ask me now about, when are classes coming, is it going to be the same amount, and yeah, it's going to be the same amount, but I still have to reach out to teachers. I just literally have had no time, and then I feel like it's like this week I actually need some time to heal. I need like a little bit of a break. So hopefully before the end of November I can have all of that ironed out and have some details to give to people. And of course I do the Cotonia podcast, so I'm trying to make sure I keep up with that every 2 weeks. I've only got 3 episodes. I just did one that I have to edit this morning, and then that's got to go up for Patreon. I would have normally edited it on Saturday, but Saturday was really busy. So, so I'm going to have to do that, and then I have to create the video as well, which does not take as much time actually. Once the audio's done, then that's the hard part. So okay. Anyway, updates, right? Back to four of cups. So this kind of jumped into my head. We need T-shirts for the ISFM. Yeah, that's actually a good idea. I have to I have the logo. I'll have to add it to my spring store. Actually, I already have a spring store, so I'll have to create them. I'll create T-shirts with the logo. I'll try to do ones with like the small logo, because then it looks a little bit more. We could do ones with the big one too, but that way at least there's a small one there that people could do. So yeah, good idea, Joanne. I'll have to think about that. Oh, and Joanne's podcast with Wayne, I think that we should link up to that too, because that looks like I want to listen to that at some point today. I wanted to listen to it on the night of, but I had such a headache after I was done with my with the Arhani session I was doing that I was just like, okay, I'm gonna. I have to listen to it sometime in the next few days. But I recommend that everybody go over to Inside the Sacred Circle and check it out, her conversation with Wayne, which looks like it's already getting a lot of views, and it looks like it's going to be really excellent. So definitely point people in that direction. And I still want to put this post together for everybody on like what everybody's doing, kind of who's been in this group, so that I can push that out to people who are interested. So. So yeah, I'm getting so much feedback on that, very positive. Oh, good, excellent. Well, good, it should be, because, and I think I'm going to have a question for you, connected to him, Joanne, but I'll ask you off the record. It puts things in perspective. Well, yeah, and that's exactly what you needed, I think, was to put things in perspective. And, so we will, so I'll message you about that. It might not be today, it might be tomorrow, but at some point I'll message you. I have something I wanted to ask you about that in the bigger picture, but yeah, indeed. So, okay, so back to the Four of Cups. I'll go back there, but yeah, it's how these live streams are. It's like we kind of jump around to different topics, which is totally fine. Anytime, awesome, thank you. All right, so this jumped into my head this morning, and when Sam mentioned like reorganizing, drawers, kitchen closets, and things, that's exactly what I thought of, because I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I feel like I'm being pushed to do. Now my body does not want to cooperate, but like I'm going to be going down this morning, and I went and bought we have to get extra garbage stickers. I got a whole bunch of them from the town so that I can start throwing things away. I'm shredding papers. I'm just getting rid of stuff. I think every paper I ever connected with my doctoral dissertation is in the basement. And there's a lot of those drafts and stuff which are interesting from an archival perspective, but I'm probably just going to end up just getting rid of them all because I'm like, I have the book. The book is out, and I have a PDF copy of everything. So I don't need all of these paper drafts that I was sending back and forth to my readers and stuff. Maybe if I'm famous one day, somebody's going to want to have those, but I don't, I doubt it. So, but I'm kind of looking at the stuff and I'm like, I have to decide what stays and what goes. And if I'm planning to move overseas, if you've moved, you understand you can't take it all with you. So this is idea, but this is often called the card of dissatisfaction. Now, the way that this card is constructed, okay, so you have a man here, or a boy, or looks like younger person, sitting there. Okay, he's wearing red, green, and blue. Okay, so these are definitely colors. Well, blue, of course, is more of an emotional color, and red tends to be more action oriented, and green, actually, to me, in tarot, green colors can have to do kind of with nature. Are you able to send it? I can hold it for you if you need be. Just a thought. Okay. Thank you. No, thank you for that offer. If that needs to be a thing, I'm good to know that that's an option. So I will let you know. For your Museum of the Breed Birch of the Dark Feminine. Yeah. Years from now, when more people, we know how it is. There's only a small group in your lifetime, and then maybe after your lifetime, people think it's great, or maybe they won't. So it's just kind of like that kind of thing. But thank you, I appreciate that. If there's something, because there may be a kind of thing where I may need to ship some things and just have them held. But we'll see. We'll see where all that goes. I might message you anyway independently, also, Sam, about a couple of things that But thank you for that. I appreciate that. So it's good to know. So with this card, okay, I was mentioning with the colors here. So the green, I often think of as being another earth connected card. Like we think of the green. Thank you. The whole earth connected card, but it's also, I think of green as having to do with money, with finances. So we've got that with the red and the blue. So there's almost like, to me, this is almost like the colors that he wears represents that, trying to balance the head and the heart in the realm of dealing with sort of the day-to-day financial realities or what we want for our security. But his arms are crossed, okay? So when you have the arms crossed, this is where the heart is actually closed. And we notice that the blue is down on the bottom, whereas the red is more what's on the top. So that's almost like that's what's being, and it's like the arms kind of like keep that down. There's the feeling there. This is a water card. This is cups, right? But the feeling is kind of kept down. And he's staring at 3 cups. Now we don't see that these cups actually have anything in them, but actually I don't know that you do in any of them in this one. But he's staring at them, and he, and that look is. That's that judgy look, right? That's that kind of like, you're not that. So it's a card of dissatisfaction, right? There's 3 cups, and somehow none of them hold the thing that this individual is really looking for. But you look at the cup that's being this is actually the same cup that's on the Ace of Cups card. It's the cloud with the cup coming out of it, right? So there's something being handed to him. There's some kind of a new option. Again, these don't satisfy here. Something's being held out to you. A gift is being held out to you. But this person's not looking at it. They're just closed off, and they're just staring straight ahead at what was in front of them. Okay? So this is definitely a card of, and with this kind of blue background, there's this almost sense, there's an emotionalism to it, but it's that, so this is sometimes considered to be the card of boredom, or it's going to be the card of just, I have all these things and they're not good enough. Now, what popped into my head today was a story that I read a long time ago. I like a lot of early American lit, and I read Nathaniel Hawthorne is an author that I like quite a bit. And Hawthorne had written a story called The Birthmark. And that story, for whatever reason, popped into my head today. Now, The Birthmark is a story, it's like of a couple from, probably Puritan times or whatever, like that era, which is what Hawthorne wrote really in that particular time period. But there was a couple, and the man was a scientist. He was like a doctor and a scientist. So he was, experimenting with things and working with elixirs and chemicals and things, and trying to, trying to create different potions and things like that. So anyway, he's this doctor, and his wife is like an incredibly, incredibly beautiful woman. But when she blushes, there's a little birthmark that appears like on her cheek, and it looks like a tiny, tiny little handprint. Okay, and now the doctor, who loves his wife and thinks she's beautiful, he keeps, whenever she blushes and he sees this, it starts to really revolt him. He's like, she's so perfect, except for this little mark on her cheek. Okay, she's so perfect. And after a while, his wife starts to notice the way he's looking at her, and he kind of says, maybe, you're so beautiful, maybe we could just do something. And then she starts to become horrified by it. She's like, oh my God, my husband looks at me and all I can see is this little birthmark. And it literally starts to make, he's obsessed with it, because now this is the one imperfection in his perfect wife, right? And he's got to fix it. I'm sure that I can do something to fix it, right? And her, because she's just so upset that this is all he's focused on. When he, when he says, well, he invents something. He's like, this will remove it. Let's try this so that this can remove the birthmark. And she's at first she's like she's kind of horrified at this, but finally because she's so upset at how displeased he is, she says, okay, well, I don't even want to look at it anymore. You go ahead and do it. So he applies the solution to her cheek, and it has some kind of an effect on her, and she's feeling something kind of like throughout her entire body as this is doing. And gradually, this chemical that he comes up with is starting to do the work. The birthmark is kind of starting to fade away, and he says, "Look, I've gotten rid of it. You're perfect." And she says to him at that point, she says, she tells him that she's dying, because what it turns out is that little handprint is almost like the little angel handprint, or the little soul handprint that was kind of like, that was like the mark of her soul, and he just removed it, and so she dies at the end. Because, and really, in a way, that's what made her perfect. Because, as I've often said, perfecere is the Latin word for finished. So you're perfect, you're dead, So that story, for whatever reason, and I have not read it in ages. It was probably something I read in high school, right? But it came into my mind today when I was thinking about this card. And about the symbolism of that. You have the man, the doctor, the scientist, the person who has this very intellectual way of looking at things, who thinks that they know how to perfect nature, that they think that they know the better way to do things. And so they look at the feminine in all its beauty, but all they can see are the imperfections. And the imperfection that they see is actually the mark of the soul, which is really interesting. The soul of the feminine is considered to be imperfect. But really what it comes down to, as I've talked about with the connection of the soul, when the soul archetype gets projected, that is the one thing that men cannot. I'm talking about this actually in this week's podcast. That is the one type of thing that makes men go out of control. Men like to always feel like they're the emperor, that they're in control of everything. But it's love that can unseat them, that can make them feel in a way that they don't know how to negotiate, right? So a lot of intellectual energy ends up being applied to try to conquer that feeling, to try to say, or it becomes very, very judgy about, and again, once the projection starts to be withdrawn, that there's this kind of energy of picking apart, well, this is nice, but look at all these other things that are wrong. That can happen the other way too. It can happen from women to men, but it's interesting because a lot of it has to do with the soul. The soul archetype is the thing that can make a man just completely. They completely can make a man submit. Okay, so there's a lot of energy put into making the soul submit. And that's something I think that's to be thought about here. Now, when I look at the Four of Cups in the, this is my Kabbalistic deck, okay? So we have the Four of Cups. We see the moon in Cancer, okay? And we're looking at the Sephiroths here, and if you know Kabbalah, I think Joanne might know something about it. I don't know if anybody else does, but this is the Sephiroth of Hesed, sometimes known as Gevurah. And this is on the Pillar of Mercy, Okay, so this is connected to this. And in Aleister Crowley's deck, we have the card that is called Luxury. Okay, the Four of Cups is called the card of Luxury, and this is the image of it here, where you see that there is this water kind of pouring through these cups. Okay, but now that's interesting. Luxury seems quite different from dissatisfaction. So I actually went to the Book of Thoth this morning, which is the Crowley's explanation of this deck. And he talks about the fours, and he says the cards are attributed to Hesed, literally what I said, that particular Sephiroth of mercy. Because it's on mercy and severity are across from each other. So it's kind of like Mars and Venus almost. It's kind of like they're two, the Hesed is on the side of well, really no, Hesed is probably more Jupiter, I think. It's more about mercy. It's about being open rather than being closed and severe and following all the rules strictly, which would be more on the Gabora side. This is more on the side of being merciful, taking things into account, being equanimity rather than just the letter of the law. The connection between the 4 and the number 3 is complex. The important characteristic is that 4 is below the abyss. Okay, the abyss being dot. It's like right between. On here, they don't show it because it's the invisible Sephiroth, but it's like usually right where this little zigzag is right here. That's usually where dot is. That's called the abyss, and therefore its practice. It means solidification and materialization. Things have become manifest. The essential point is that it expresses rule of law. In the wand suit, its cards call completion. The manifestation promised by Bina has now taken place. The number must be solid because it's the actual dominating influence on all following card. Hesed, which is Jupiter, the father, first level below the abyss, is the highest idea which can be understood in an intellectual way, and that's why it's attributed to Jupiter, who he actually connects to the demiurge, rather interestingly. The Four of Cups is called Luxury. The masculine nature of fire permits the Four of Wands to appear as a clear-cut conception. The weakness in the element of water threatens its purity. It's not quite as strong enough to control itself properly, so the Lord of Pleasure is a little unstable. Purity has somehow been lost in the process of satisfaction. Okay? So that's what he says. Oh, and good morning. So, yeah, in the process of satisfaction, that something is lost. And there's something else to think about with that too, because when we are dissatisfied with something, when we have things, think about when you achieve something. Let's just say there's something you wanted to buy or something you want to own. Like, okay, I've always wanted to have this car, or I've always wanted to, I don't know. There's just some other expensive item that you've wanted that you finally save up for, and you get it. So it feels like an achievement. Like, yay, I finally have this thing. Yes, good to see you too. But the thing is, once you have the thing, the satisfaction in it is gone. Once something is attained, it's no longer as interesting, right? Which goes back to kind of what I was just saying about the soul. It's like once the soul is, once one feels like they're either in control of it or that they have won in some sense, that they have won over the soul, that the soul is no longer elusive and mysterious, and that they feel that they have now become familiar, that now it's no longer interesting. Once we have something, and I guess that's also part of the idea that we see in Buddhism and other places that say satisfaction comes from is not attached to the material world. And unfortunately, that often gets construed as, well, the material world is bad. Well, no, the material world's not bad, but we, with our intellect, we're always looking for the next thing. We're always looking to perfect things. And I feel like we've taken that to almost kind of almost an illogical extension at this point, where we've just decided that we're not good enough to do it, that machines have to do the perfection for us because we're just not capable of it. So there becomes this attitude of, that where we completely doubt our ability of our soul to do anything. Okay, in the cat deck, we have this Four of Cups, which is called the Four of Sea, because sea is the water element here. And you have this cat sitting here, like, hanging out, looking quite bored, actually. It's funny because there's like 4 lobsters, which are often the sign of Cancer, right? Dancing in the background. They look like lobsters or crabs or what they're supposed to be, but they look more like lobsters, but they're blue. And the cat's just like, they're not even, whatever they're doing, I love that deck. Yes, this deck is great, and I think Pat's not on this morning, but I think she had told me she had bought this deck too. So yeah, this is an awesome deck, and but there, yeah. So you know, it doesn't matter what luxury is being dangled in front of you. It's like you know, it's not somehow it's not as satisfying, or the satisfaction is only momentary, and then we look away. Now the four. So what does this have to do with Virgo energy? What does that have to do with organization? Well, because Virgo is the sign of perfection. Okay, Virgo energy has to do with the way in which we perfect things. Now, to the point that Sam was making about, you know, organizing the house and getting things cleaned up. Blue lobsters are rare, so it could mean you have these rare opportunities, and you were like, yeah, whatever. Well, that's a good point too. Yes, because that's the other aspect of this card, is that don't miss an opportunity. Like, it could be a missed opportunity because you're not looking at the opportunity. You've just kind of looked past it because there's something about it. Oh yeah, I have this opportunity. Yeah, but you know, what if this happens? What if that happens? I might as well just stay where I am. You know, I mean, that's another aspect of the dissatisfaction card as well. But okay, with regard to the Virgo thing, I was thinking about my days in library. I started that. I really started that quite young because I spent most of my youth. My mother worked in a library from the time I was about 8 years old, and I mean, we always went to the library before then. So I remember being between the ages of like 9 and 15. I would, like, if I had like spring break or something, a lot of times I would just go to the library with her, and she would be working, and I would just be roaming around. Like, I was trying to think, like, if I could write down every book I read, it just wouldn't even be possible. It would fill a football stadium. I've read so much. And some of it's just kids' books, right, when I was a kid. But even when I got older, the different series of things, I was just going through and just sitting in the stacks all day, just reading. You know, I loved to do that. And what they would do sometimes when I was there is they would say, okay, well, you know, here, why don't you, my mother was doing shelving, so this was just like a little part-time job she had. And eventually she became the department head after a while, but they had said to me, you know, why don't you, if you want to take some and just do it if you're bored. So I would go out and I would do the shelving, and they said, and I remember her supervisor saying, your 9-year-old daughter does it better than most people in this department, because I just have that thing. When I used to be department head myself over at Fairleigh Dickinson, if I had to go run off invoices or do something, I had to go use our copier. I had to wait for it to warm up, you know, because we had a business department that I didn't leave it for our admin assistant, because she would like sit on it for days, even if I would tell her to do it immediately, because it would take like 2-3 weeks. And then if we were paying Amazon, it was like, then they would be like, I would get a bill where I'd have to reconcile, and then they'd say, oh, you didn't pay your past bill, but I did pay the past bill, but they just didn't cut the check for 2 weeks. So anyway, it was a big mess. So whenever I got the bill, I did it myself, and I did it immediately, because I didn't want any delays in terms of getting paid and screwing up, because it took a long time to go through, because I had to make sure that everything that Amazon said was on that bill that on our business account was actually received. So I would stand out there, and there were the books, like they had graphic novels and stuff. I guess some of the kids had wanted them, so they were there, and I'd be standing there, and of course they were always kind of knocked over, so I'd have to always go over, and it was not my job. It was nowhere near being my job, but I was just like, okay, I have to fix these up, and then I'd be like, oh no, these are out of order. Okay, no, wait. And it just annoyed me that like people would not go in and like want things to be in order. Okay, back to the perfectionist streak. And I had gotten involved with data and stuff too, because that was my whole thing. I was a cataloger for years, and people don't realize the value of cataloging. If it's not done properly, then you can't find stuff. And people don't know how to do research anymore. We're so reliant on keywords. I remember crowdsourcing was the thing. Oh, let people just throw their own keywords in, and that way you'll know how people really search. I remember I had a boyfriend at the time who was a librarian, who was just kind of like, oh, well, you know, having, 20 subject headings is better than only having a couple. I was like, no, actually it's not. It just messes everything up. It just makes a big mess out of everything. I like my records like clean and neat. You know, I like everything to just kind of be there. Because to me, that's where that kind of attention to detail, working in a library does require attention to detail. If you have that attention to detail, then people can find stuff. And that's kind of the point. Is that you don't want to just throw it in any way, because the source you really need you might not be able to find if somebody has improperly cataloged it or classified it or whatever. So I was always very, very particular about that. And that's where my particularities would come in. When I would do records, when I would teach people how to do records, it was like I very particular about how it had to be done. And they're like, oh my God, why are you so fussy about every space and everything? I'm like, because it makes a difference. It all makes a difference. You want to do it right. And now you have to give up because everybody does it wrong. And, anyway. But it's fine. The more information we have, the harder it is apparently for people to follow rules and keep that in order, with the results you would expect. So everybody just Googles everything and doesn't even bother, but real research should require that you do these things right, and if you ever work on a doctorate or anything like that, the value of being able to find the data that you need when you go to a library. So anyway, but that perfectionist streak, that idea that everything kind of has to be organized and in order. And as I've been working on my house, because like I said at the beginning, I've been doing painting outside. I painted my root cellar door. I painted my gas meter because it was actually rusty on one side, so I painted it the same gray color. I've been going through and doing things, but as I do one thing, like I painted the masonry in the back, and I was like, oh, well, now I need to do it all the way around the house. It's like, once you've done one thing, now the next thing doesn't look good, so now I have to worry about doing the next thing, and, so there becomes this, like, kind of an endless thing of trying to reach that stage of perfection where everything is exactly, clean, orderly, done, just the way you want it, but it's kind of a never-ending cycle there. So there's this thing that we have about about what we consider perfection, about what we want here, and about what the sense that we always seem to not necessarily want to settle for anything less than that. But I think the reality of life is, well, first of all, things don't always happen in nice, neat, orderly, straight lines. Sometimes you're doing crazy jumps around, the chessboard, so to speak, to get to where it is that you want to get to. And sometimes, we may have an opportunity and maybe things are not, we think it's not exactly the way that we want it. But the thing is, we don't necessarily know what outcomes are or how things are going to transpire. So sometimes you have to trust that even though something is messy, that it's still going to get you to where you want to be. And this kind of comes to the last card, the Four of Cups card that I have, which is called the Turning In card, which we have seen many times here on this live stream. And yeah, this is about focusing on what, this kind of almost gets to the essence of, here's all the voices that we have that tell us that either we're not doing it right or it's not good enough. And these are not voices of, you could think of these as external voices, but these are more the voices in our head. Okay, this is those little phantasms that are constantly, when we accomplish something, say, yeah, but, that's the aspect of the soul that can be very judgy and very opinionated and just kind of constantly picking apart everything that you're doing. We do that, our minds do that as a general thing. We dissect everything with our minds. We see something and when we want to understand it, we have to it's like we have to get the knives out and the intellectual knives of the swords and dice it up and figure out what's going on here. And again, there's certain circumstances where that is the appropriate thing to do. And a lot of academia is like that too. How do we deconstruct, postmodernism, how do we deconstruct everything, right? But because we think that by doing that, we get down to the essence of it, right? We get down to the purity of it by dissecting out the noise. But it doesn't always work. Sometimes the noise is part of the picture. And that noise is part of what makes, it's part of the overall song of the thing. And, but do you want everything to be in the same clear monotone or in the same clear, sounding the same? There's going to be always a variation of things, and our experiences are no different. There's going to be a variation of experience. We're not always going to experience things in the same way. And it's not necessarily in the method that our sense of cause and effect expects. We think, oh, well, this A happened, so now it's got to be B, and now it's got to be C, and now it's got to be D. Now, again, this is not to say that people should not plan things, because we do make plans, but we have to recognize that there's all kinds of chaotic, unexpected things that can come in. We know how to make order out of things, but what do we do when we're overwhelmed with chaos, right? How do you deal with chaos? And sometimes what this is saying, another aspect of the Four of Cups, is that sometimes we don't really see what it is that we have, or that what's being offered to us. We're not seeing it, and we're not valuing it. We're not. So sometimes it has to do with when people talk about gratitude practice, for instance. Make a list of all the things you're grateful for that you have. Right? Loki. Yes. Well, yeah. Loki. That trickster element. And also, I was talking about Eris over the last few days. That's another element of the Loki. There's that trickster. There's that, and it's interesting too, because just thinking about the indigenous or Native American kind of way, there's a figure. There's a trickster figure. And I'm not sure I'm going to be saying this correctly because I don't have the word in front of me, but it's something like the Heyoaka or something like that. The word is something like that. I could be saying it totally wrong, so my apologies to Native people for not saying it correctly. But basically, it means the mocking shadow of the Creator God, and or you'll hear about the ape of Thoth, right? It's the idea that there's some kind of something that almost, as you go through life doing your serious thing, that there's something over here kind of like making a joke out of the whole thing and kind of like putting their thing in. He restores order to chaos and Thoth, and I live them both. And Thoth, and I love them both. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's this idea that, but it's that element that comes in that, it's also what we call the element of synchronicity too. It's the idea that something that comes in that may derail you in some way, but there's a meaning in that derailment. Like there's something in that derailment that says either there's something you're not looking at here, or there's something that you're not, there's something that you're missing because you're expecting to see something a certain way. And if it's not that way, then it's not right, right? It's that kind of quote unquote, but energy. So, just some things to think about. I don't know why that came into my mind this morning. Maybe because I've been doing a lot of this reorganizing in preparation for when in preparation for when I move. But I feel like my guides have been pushing me to do this for a long time, and now it's like now they're just kind of like, all right, get your act together here. So I've definitely been working towards that. But also there's just this impulse towards getting things in order and finishing things up. I said that the other day, that we're in this space astrologically of finishing things up. Pluto's moving out of Capricorn, Saturn's going direct, Mercury is going retrograde, but that's our opportunity to correct things, right? Where we might have not seen something, or might have gone, of course, because a lot of times we refuse to see what's in front of us. Yes, precisely, 100%. That's exactly what it is. We're not seeing what's in front of us. And that's the hard thing too, because when I have people come to me for readings and they say they want to know about certain situations or certain decisions, and I'm kind of like, there is something right in front of you. They're like, but what? I don't know what's right in front of me. I can't see it. And I'm like, well, sometimes you need to let go of it a little bit. And again, like the turning in card says, you need to kind of just be quiet and let the information about what you're missing. It will come in. It does come in if you give it space to come in. And it's interesting that nothingness is our first, talking about space, right? Okay, so here's our reading for today. It all feels like it's all behind a fogged mirror at times. Yeah, and especially now, doesn't it? I mean, it's right, because you know something's there, and the question is, well, do I wait for that thing? Or do I take action to try to pursue something? Or, because a lot of times, I think the word we have here is serendipity. A lot of times, and speaking of books and browsing bookshelves, I go looking for one thing, and but look at this interesting thing over here. That's probably a good analogy too. Where if you go in, like that's one thing I always found about libraries. It's kind of like, well, people need to know exactly where a book is on a shelf, and I'm like, well, yes and no, because a lot of they want, you might say, okay, I'm looking for a particular classification number. I may be looking in literature. So if I'm looking for American literature, I may be looking in the PS section if you're in an academic library. And if I happen to know the kind of number for my author or for my thing, which most people don't, but if they do, then you might go and say, okay, I'm going to go to that section, I'm looking for this book, but oh, there's also this book, and oh, there's also this thing that's about this, and oh, there's also that. Like you find whatever it is that you go to one section looking for one particular title, but because of the way things are classified, you may find other things in that area that you weren't looking for, but maybe address what you need better than what the thing you were originally looking for. So it's almost like the browsing thing. It's like allowing yourself that space. We're in this nothingness, like they're in the gap. You don't know what to do, and we immediately think, well, I have to have the plan. I have to know the specific thing. And there's an urgency that we feel inside. There's the intensity. This is what's unconscious, right? That intensity, I have to do something with this right now, and so I have to make a decision, and I have to plan for the next 2 years, 4 years, whatever it is. There's an intensity there of feeling a certain amount. And intensity, this can be just a drive or an ambition to do something. Yes, absolutely, what Alex is saying here. Yeah, a drive. But it can also bring about a lot of anxiety. You know how it is when you're restless? And I always mention that in Hinduism, the name, like I said, my guru had given me the name Nischala, which is like stillness. And I remember when I was researching the name, I said, yeah, the opposite of that name is Chonchala, which is to be restless. And that's what the mind does. The mind's running all the time. Oh my God, I gotta do this, gotta do that, gotta do that. And the fact that she's saying your name is stillness, not that she thinks I'm the embodiment of stillness, but that you're gonna do better when you embody that rather than all the other stuff. And I'm a very verbal person, so it's a matter of knowing when to talk and when to shut the voice up and just listen, right? Yeah, and the external feeling of which we're aware. Okay, we have the breakthrough card. Okay, this is justice. This is the card of truth. This is the card of seeing our own truth. Chanchala, same in Telugu, that makes sense. Yes, Chanchala, right, exactly, same word. There's the trickster, and we think we know what we want, and then the creator tells us no. Right, exactly, because, as I said, we think the mind is king. We live in a society that says the mind rules over everything, and it doesn't matter what it is. It can be, we talk about science, but also religion. It also rules over, it also the way that we approach everything is that kind of legalistic, rule-based, rational. We're going to put this all in order, and we're going to have control of everything. And but the breakthrough here is again with the intensity here. The positive way you could look at these two cards together is to say, okay, well, there's we have this empty space, and there's an intensity to create, to do something with it, right? And externally, we kind of know, we know the truth of something. We know what it is that what we need to do. We're waiting for that breakthrough, right? And the advice card is actually the King of Cups, which is healing. Okay, this is a card of healing. This is a card that says that we that this is about, again, we're back to the heart center again. That one operates best right now when they're operating from the heart center and not from the mind. Okay, what we think of as the mind. And and the outcome, we've talked about this card this week too, right? Reality is getting to be a little distorted and broken up here, and these nice little black and white checkers that we think we know, we know what's good, what's bad, this very dualistic kind of color. And this guy's sitting here with his little pina colada or whatever, just the way they say it in the book, and under his umbrella, and it's like, yes, I'm the king here, and I am the king of all the order that I have created here, and there's the chaos sneaking up right behind him, okay? So again, they call this the card of laziness, but it's more the way in which we decide that things are more or less as we see them, and we kind of allow ourselves to get satisfied in that space, when in fact we may be being pushed to break that down, okay? So, and the energies lately, Thoth always gives me a real slap. Whenever I say truth be told, lies unfold, he hits every area where not only externally is lying, but the lies I tell myself. Well, right, exactly, because then we have to find the places where we're not being truthful with ourselves, or where we're not, where we might have gotten our narrative wrong. Okay, and a lot of times people don't want to do that. We're very attached to our narratives. We're very attached to our worldview and the way that things should be, or the way that things should be done. And that's another element of the Four of Cups, because the Four of Cups says, yeah, but this is not according to the way that I think it should be done. But maybe that's not the way to do it. Maybe we got to think about, okay, well, maybe there's another opportunity. Maybe there's another way to do this, right? I think the lazy card is my mascot. Well, there's a lot of people, I think, who are in that position because we all get comfortable. And I feel like a lot of the energies right now, maybe just saying to us, like, look, you don't, whatever, again, and whatever the results of things that have happened recently, it's kind of like, no, it's like there's like a wake up there. Like, listen, get organized. Like, what are you, see things for what they are, and don't take certain things for granted. And also it just could be that, things kind of get turned upside down, or we don't, we feel very sure of the way something is, and then it doesn't necessarily happen that way. Like, to me, that's the trickster. The trickster comes in and messes things up. But sometimes the trickster stops you and derails your dreams or derails your plan and there may be a reason. You may be avoiding a bigger disaster. It's like the examples I gave about people who were derailed from their job interviews at the World Trade Center on 9/11, right? I mean, there could be a bigger reason why you are being derailed. You could be walking into a disaster, very cheerfully because you're pretty convinced that you're going in the right place. Okay? So, yeah. We kind of get pushed in these different directions, which is why there's all this work around the heart space. This is all this work about that. It's what we do with that anger. I learned that when my daughter was diagnosed. Well, yes, anger is a type of energy. It's not that negative emotions, we always think, well, we have to avoid negative emotions, but it's like, no, those emotions are there for a reason. They have to be expressed. And this is why I always favor creative expression. There's got to be a way. That's why when people who don't like, oh, I don't like this type of music because it sounds very violent. Well, you know what? That's an expression of something. And if people listen to that, isn't it better that they go listen to music than go out and kill somebody? You know what I mean? Think about how things are being expressed. And when we don't have the freedom to express or the creativity to express, that's when we get these kinds of imbalances. And this is where we end up closing off the heart because we're trying to protect it. We're trying to protect it because all these emotions leave us worn out. So we're trying to protect ourselves. There's a lot that kind of needs to be thought about there in terms of that. But interesting that dissatisfaction was the theme that came up for me today, because I feel like, there's I think part of this anxiety and part of this restlessness is we've got to, and I think to a certain degree, it's correct to spend time, like I said, going back and organizing things, going back and figuring out where we have loose ends, like I said yesterday, because I think that's part of the work right now. But I think there's also the thing of don't miss the opportunity. Rammstein is perfect for releasing rage. I play it when I vacuum. Yeah, actually, I think Joanna Madlock listens to them a lot too. She pops them into back in the days when you had the CD player or the cassette player in your car, right? That was what we listened to. But exactly, we all have our our things that can help us express certain things. Yeah, too hot. Yeah, exactly. So so anyway, some food for thought for today. We are past time, so I just want to say thank you guys so much for joining me this morning. As always, it's always good to see everybody on here, and of course new people who join in as well. It's good to have you on. Feel free to join in with anything you want to chat about. You're welcome. And some of you I will see Wednesday. Like I said, the Dream Workshop, I will post the link to that. It is on my website, but I will post a link to it today. It's under events, under event list. And then also we will be having Max's session this week if you are in the ISFM. So, and the idea of t-shirts is great. So, you are welcome. And yes, and thank you guys so much for being here, and have a great Sunday, and I will see you Monday morning. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Take care.